With these words, a wise fox showed once a little sad prince his secret to living life as truth, present, and real as he could, looking deep into the act of taking care. The invaluable treasure of creating relations that last through time, a creation of ties that come out of the heart, unconditional and true force, born from the invisible empathy for life, from the will to see rightly through the pure act of love. No image, just the right of establishing a pact still perhaps in sound, sound that become words, words that become responsible for what we have tamed, but tamed us at the same time. A truth that the fox is forgotten on men, but the little prince shall never forget as he makes his way back to his beloved rose. One might think, through the reflections of the little prince and the fox, that man neglects the act of taking care, of creating ties healthily through the gesture of minding others' life. The fox reflects on the little rituals that create a relationship between living beings, regardless of their nature. Man, animal, plant, they all coexist in a sort of taming condition that, when carried with the heart, with the eyes of love and compassion, bring joy and peace as a sensation of wellness from the deep inside soul. Nurture, grooming, attending, heeding, looking after are gestures of deep understanding of the fragile balance between all ways of life on earth. Inside these gestures, we find our voice to be a sacred place for sharing, a mystic power that connects the empty space between all material form. I would like to add to this reflection, a reflection that would lead us to the main topic of this space we are creating to reflect on sound and music, a fundamental truth, as an amulet for the days to come ahead. Individualistic thrive, to search for the top, to be the best, to not care, to not look after, to not groom or nurture what surrounds you, especially the life that surrounds you, is to lock yourself up and out on a very cold and lonely peak, a place for champions. To the kid in me, in you, to you children, in the sake of a fox and a little prince, remember, the goal of life is not to be the best, but to give and be your best. Now, let's give a beginning to this reflection, the reflection of sound as the carrier of a language, sound organized in the concept of music as a universal way to express emotion, create ties through that emotion, and maybe dig deeper into a pure way of caring not only for others, but for us, in the protection of a non-binary language like music. Emotive, as ancient as humanity, as sincere as our most basic responses to feelings, a magic code between us and a reminiscence of a future yet to be discovered. Let us reflect on what language we use to communicate what is essential to the heart, what is invisible to the eyes, what we tame but tame us, without fooling ourselves in the very wasted rhetoric of verbal language, of image, of our wasted ways of speaking through our daily lives, without even taking the time to reflect on our most precious instrument, voice. Our voice, evolving with us through time and space, had led us to magnificent places of evolution. We also have created artifacts to conjugate sound beyond our rational understanding, as if an instinct, a universal voice was guiding us into the invention of tools for transcending this very dimension, to create the divine, recreated on earth, even if we don't understand what the divine is, what celestial bodies mean. It is in times like this, times where the world seems to bombard us with a draining overflow of information, with images and words that collapse into a window of light that represents our fear for the future, our confused version of the present, our idealized sense of the past, that more than ever there is an urge to look into the abyss of our intimate being and collect the different emotive tonalities that are bloomed in our life, hoping to have a way to handle them and make them bloom and give light through them with education and care. We need to exercise the sensibility to reflect on what we are perceiving and, without denial, embrace our feelings and contrast the coldness and sterility of social distancing and an apocalyptic shift on human behavior. Lack of touch, lack of human expression reflected in the purity of the face, the constant fear of an invisible enemy that lies in the very best secretions of the human body, alarming news that rather than informing populations endorse fear, stress, enslavement. We need to question the way we give information, the way we receive information, and maybe try the exercise of communicating through an instinctive, emotive, pure language like sound, like music, without the overuse of concept, of words, of the overlapping of image and speeches in a convulsive flow. Let's try a little explanation, then an experiment, together. Let's take care of reality in a different way, imagining and shaping our actions from sound to find through it another way to understand image, writing, and communication. Music is for each one a very personal conception. To define music might be to close the doors for an opportunity to understand somebody else's evolution, somebody else's way of expressing and understanding. Yet, music is a ground in which we all reflect and relate, almost in a telepathic way. Diotima once pointed to Plato. Reality is perceptible only through one's character, which includes one's desires and prejudices and one's limited understanding of logic. Man moves through the world of becoming, the ever-changing world of sensory perception, into the world of being, the world of forms, absolutes, and transcendence. Man transcends his place in becoming by eros, love, where man reaches the highest good, an intuitive and mystical state of consciousness. If one was to think of music as the voice of beauty, of love, it would always serve its purpose of carrier of that mystical state of consciousness, the purpose of helping us transcend. Music is a word that means much more than what we can understand. Its magic resides in its capacity to elevate, to arouse, to dig deep into our most intimate corners. And yet, music has the power to connect us not only with other living beings, but as well with the entire universe through the physical phenomena of waves vibrating through it. Music, as Leila Pillai said, is the picture of our beloved. But what is our beloved? Is that shine that emanates from inside, source of light and inspiration, and at the same time, as she explains, it's our goal. That is why, without really knowing it, we love music. We reflect on it, and the perfect mechanism of the universe is pictured on it. Music is the language of the soul. It's the key tool to create a state of transcendence between reality and the unknown, the heavenly. As ancient as humanity, it's said the oldest artifact conceived to emit sound appears in the archaeological records around 40,000 years ago. I would like to think there is an even older one that is around 2.4 million years old, and that was given as a gift to us, or a superpower perhaps. One that allowed us to do incredible magic tricks as we evolved into more complex beings. That one is our voice. Voice is our first approach to sound, to express emotions and creating the blocks through which we build the very base pillars of our communication. Vocal communication of emotions is an everlasting biological adaptation for socially living species and has been evolving with us constantly. Voice is our carrier signal, making emotion evident to the ear, to the heart. It's our first encounter with music. Sound, in its formal musical way, has had a trajectory evolving through time and history. From the primitiveness of voice and the first human using it as an instrument, mimicking sounds of nature or even the sounds of society around us, it was not until a man called Pythagoras paid close attention to the vibration of a chord that we had the first formal theorization of sound through what we know now as notes. Legend states that one day Pythagoras was walking past a smith's workshop, listening to the sound of the blacksmith's hammer on the anvil. He turned his attention to the percussive sound that was produced and noted that some strikes sounded much higher than others. He was certain that there was a mathematical explanation for the different pitches he was hearing. So he entered the smith's shop and observed that they were using different side hammers. Some of the hammers were large and others smaller, but they were ratios of each other, one being twice the size of another one being 2/3 of the size of the last. Pythagoras declared these relationships as an absolute interval of music. As much of a legend, regardless of its legitimacy, what we do know is that the great mind of this wise mathematician understood that a string exactly half the length of another will play a pitch that is exactly an octave higher when stuck or plucked. Split a string into thirds and you rise the pitch an octave and a fifth. Split it into fourths and then you go even higher. This concept is known as the overtone series or harmonic series, and it is a feature of physics affecting waves and frequencies in ways we can see and hear and ways we can't. Another genius understanding of Pythagoras about sound is even more revealing of the nature of it, of music. Pythagoras believed that the planets themselves, all heavenly bodies, rang out notes of vibration based on the orbit and distance to each other. We humans simply lack the ability to hear this music of the spheres, but as much as it is invisible or even inaudible, it might have a constant and direct influence in the way we move through reality, in the way nature is formed, don't you think? It certainly has affected the way we have developed music writing. These mathematical ratios help to define every system of notation through history. In other words, we tune our modern day instruments using the mathematics that Pythagoras discovered almost 2,500 years ago, with a fair adjustment of temperament that the master Johann Sebastian Bach gave to it around 1722 and 1742 in a series of works named the Well-Tempered Clavier, officially claiming an adjustment on the minor and major scale in order to be able to play them without having to change the tune of the instrument every time. He claimed that he corrected the errors of the genius of Pythagoras. A series of codes, figures that symbolize what we can express with music, have been evolving through history on the urge of transmitting our musical ideas. Musical notation is, in its formal sense, any system used to visually represent orally perceived music, played both by voice and instruments. Musical notation and any living language as an organism has changed between cultures and through history, and modernity knows little about the ancient ways of transmitting written music. From antiquity to our days, musical writing shows the infinite and diverse modes we search into both transmitting and expressing a message, in this case, a sound message. Without going further into historical explanations, let us get immersed on the experimentation with sound, with music, and the idea of expressing emotions and stories of our inner self through this transcendental way of communication. C major is completely pure. Its character grounds in innocence. Simplicity, naivety. C major is children's talk. D major is the key of triumph, of hallelujahs, of war cries, of victory rejoicing, all of them inviting symphonies, all of them marches, holiday songs, and heaven rejoicing choruses are set in this key. D major is a king. E major is the noisy shouts of joy. E major is laughing, pleasure, but yet not really complete. E major is the key of full delight. E major might be a full belly, a simple joy. F major is the key of calm. positive state of easiness. G major is everything rustic, everything idyllic and lyrical, every calm and satisfied passion, ever tender gratitude for true friendship and faithful love. In a word, every gentle and peaceful emotion of the heart is correctly expressed by this key. A bright one, like the sun. A major is the key that includes declarations of innocent love. A major is satisfaction with one's state of affairs. A major is the hope of seeing one's beloved again when parting. A major is youthful cheeriness and trust in something beyond us. B major is strongly colored, announcing wild passions composed from the most glaring colors. B major is anger, rage, jealousy, fury, despair, and every burden of the heart lies in this sphere. B major is the will of confrontation. C minor is a declaration of love. At the same time, it's the lament of an unhappy love. All languishing, longing, sighing of lovesick lies in this key. C minor is a broken soul, is a broken heart. D minor is a melancholic one. It's the spleen and humorous brood. D minor is womanliness, a sensual sadness. D minor might be the contrast to D major. E minor is harsh and plaintive. E minor is harrowing, melancholic at the same time, somehow brilliant and clear. F minor is the saddest of all. It's a funeral lament and a groan of misery and longing for the grave. F minor is the key of vampires. It's a deep depression. F minor is the key of mystery, phantoms. G minor tells a discontent. It's the key of uneasiness, worrying about a failed scheme. It's a bad temper, gnashing of teeth. G minor might be, in a word, resentment or dislike. A minor is pious womanliness, is a tenderness, is a character that says sweetness. A minor is a gloomy yet glowy one. B minor. This is, as it were, the key of patience, of calm, of waiting one's fate, and of submission to the divine dispensation. B minor is a time yet to come in your head.
I love it because
Is it because of what it makes you feel when you hear it? What else?
it teaches.
It does. Do you think we understand that teaching, or is it just something that comes
No,
like...
you understand.
You do understand it?
Mm.
What is that teaching?
You can say words, but with
Bravo. I think the same, actually. You can replace words with sounds, I guess. That's what we're trying to say here. And I wanted to ask you as well, how was that day that we heard those sounds from the Amazons? Why did you get so much images just by hearing the forest? How did they get into your brain?
because I like nature and animals. So the animals came in my head and I drew it.
Yeah. And it was the sound that made you think of these animals, because you make such a beautiful drawing, and some of it was super abstract. It was great. How did you feel you were guided by the sound?
What?
How do you feel you were guided by sound? How did sound make you think about the animals you did?
Because there was the voice of the animals.
What else was there that you did this drawing in
The
which
wind, the water, and the leaves.
Yeah, it was really nice. You also put lots of colors, loads and loads. Do you think sound made you think of these colors?
What?
You think sound made you think of the colors you put on the drawing? No? What made you think about those colors?
The animals.
And what made you think about the animals?
The noise of the animals.
And what is the voice of the animals?
Sound.
Jacopo, per te cosa è la musica?
La musica è divertimento, un modo per esprimere le mie emozioni.
E secondo te la musica è un linguaggio quasi telepatico?
Sì, soprattutto se c'è Malala che telepatia con tutti.
E un'altra cosa, secondo te è possibile immaginare la realtà dalla musica più che dalla immagine?
Certo.
È possibile ricreare dei mondi?
È possibile.
Sì.
La musica può essere triste, felice, ansiosa, mistica
Molto bene.
e romantica.
E soprattutto molto mistica, secondo me, la musica, vero?
Tipo la canzone che abbiamo fatto oggi, andate sul nostro canale, iscrivetevi e mettete un sacco di mi piace.
Grazie, sei un grande come sempre. Romeo,
Oh,
per te cosa è la musica?
la musica è una delle forme di comunicazione tra paesi e paesi di tutto il mondo, è una cosa.
E come ti serve a te la musica? A che ti serve?
Serve sia per per esprimermi, per far sentire cosa so fare, ma anche per incitare gli altri a farsi piacere la musica, perché chi non le piace la musica è stupido.
E secondo te a tutti piace la musica? Conosci qualcuno che non piace la musica?
Conosco persone a cui non interessa la musica ma ascoltano musica.
Mhm. E secondo te la musica è la voce della bellezza?
Sì.
Made in space. Made in space, made in space, made in space. Made in space, made in space.